Welcome, curious minds, to the deep dive. Have you ever, just stopped for a moment, maybe in a quiet space, and felt
Hmm.
that really deep human pull, that need to believe in something more,
Hmm.
to kind of reach for meaning beyond just the everyday stuff, the tangible world?
Hmm.
What is that inside us? What makes us seek a higher truth, connect with something, well, bigger than ourselves, even when maybe logic pulls us elsewhere?
Just fundamental question, really.
It is. And today we're going on quite a journey. We're diving deep into this incredibly complex world of human belief. It's a
Yeah.
world shaped by spiritual insights, yeah, but also philosophy and just really personal experiences.
Absolutely.
And our mission, like always, is to pull out the most important, the most potent ideas from this amazing stack of sources we've gathered.
Mhm.
We've got ancient wisdom, modern takes on consciousness. It's quite a mix.
It really is.
And we want to help you, our listener, get a clearer, maybe richer, and definitely more personal handle on faith, conviction, and, the inner landscape of the human spirit.
Yeah. And what's so compelling, I think, is seeing how all these different voices, you've got yogis, mystics, philosophers, even contemporary thinkers, they all offer these unique ways of looking at the psychology and the actual practice of belief.
Different lenses, yeah.
Exactly. So we're not just looking at what people believe, we're digging into why they believe it. How do they arrive at these understandings? And what kind of impact does that actually have on their lives and, on our collective experience too?
Right.
It's a journey that, honestly, I think will show some surprising connections, but also some really profound differences across these traditions. But they're all aiming at this deeper grasp of what it means to be human.
Okay, so where do we start? Maybe let's look upwards, or maybe inwards, at how these different traditions even try to describe the divine or ultimate reality. It really is striking, isn't it? How so many paths that developed, centuries apart, seem to land on a similar idea of one single, all-encompassing reality. Even if the names are totally different, the practices vary.
Yeah, it's more than just striking. It suggests something fundamental is going on there. Because many of these traditions don't just hint at it. They really assert this singular, all-encompassing divine reality, often described as, the absolute everything.
Everything.
And it's not just some abstract philosophical idea for them. For many, it's a deeply felt, almost an experiential truth.
I came across some really powerful lines on this, actually. Things like, God is everything and God becomes everything, and get this, there is nothing which God is not, and all that God is experiencing of itself, God is experiencing in, as, and through you.
Wow. That's a radical idea of connection.
Isn't it? It completely flips our usual idea of separation. It's not just saying we're connected to the divine, but that we are fundamentally part of its own experience of itself.
So every moment, every thought.
Yeah, it's all part of this divine unfolding.
Right. That's a huge shift.
Yeah.
Moving away from this idea of maybe an external judgmental God to, well, an all-pervasive presence. That same source material, it also says, in my purest form, I am the absolute. I am absolutely everything, and therefore, I need, want, and demand absolutely nothing.
Okay, that part is revolutionary too.
It really is. It points to this inherent self-sufficiency, this completeness, that doesn't need anything from the outside. If the divine is truly absolute, needs nothing.
Yeah.
Well, that just reframes our whole relationship with it, doesn't it?
Totally. It shifts from obligation or trying to appease something to maybe something more like, I don't know, co-creation. Or just participating respectfully.
Exactly. It's very different from a God who demands sacrifices or obedience because of some kind of divine lack or need.
That's a really important distinction. So if the divine is already whole, then maybe our actions are less about filling some need out there and more about expressing our own true nature.
That seems to be the implication.
And this idea of limitlessness, it pops up in ancient wisdom too, right?
Right.
The Upanishads describe Brahman as one infinite in every direction, east, south, west, north, up, down, everywhere.
It's not just physically vast, is it?
No, it's utter boundlessness. No limits to its nature, its power, its presence. It just dissolves any box we try to put around ultimate reality.
And you see this paradox being both nothing and everything, sort of hidden but also everywhere, captured beautifully in texts like the Tao Te Ching. The Tao is empty, yet it fills every vessel, hidden, yet it shines in every corner.
That's beautiful.
It is. It's not a person like God, but more like a principle, a flow, this underlying order that just permeates everything without being limited by it. It suggests reality at its deepest level isn't just a bunch of separate things, but this interconnected field.
Okay, so this underlying reality is one, infinite, maybe paradoxical. What about its qualities? Are those consistent too?
Often. Yes, and this is where the convergence gets really interesting. These traditions frequently talk about specific, uh, very positive attributes, often reflecting humanity's highest ideals, really.
Like what?
Well, you hear about unending compassion, unstoppable love, infinite patience. One text assures us compassion never ends, love never stops, patience never runs out in God's world. It speaks to this constant benevolence, right? A divine love that isn't conditional or temporary.
And the Quran reinforces that too, doesn't it? Saying God is omnipotent, all-forgiving, compassionate.
Exactly. It's a portrayal of a divine that's not just all-powerful, but also infinitely kind. And that resonates deeply, with that human longing for acceptance, for forgiveness, for some kind of unwavering comfort.
It's not just describing God then, it's almost like a blueprint.
In a way, yeah. It's often a model for how humans should try to be. William James, he explored this idea of perceiving an unseen order. He suggested our ultimate good, our deepest flourishing, comes from harmoniously adjusting ourselves to that reality, this benevolent, all-encompassing presence. It becomes a kind of psychological and spiritual goal to align with that greater rhythm.
Okay, so if this ultimate reality is one absolute everything, and we're somehow part of it,
Hmm.
how do we square that with our everyday experience, which is, let's be honest, full of separation?
Right? That's the big question.
You see duality everywhere. Good devil, self-other, life-death, pleasure-pain. How do these teachings help us bridge that gap, that very real feeling of division in our lives? What does knowing about this unity actually mean for our feeling of being separate?
That's a really crucial tension, and it points to that aha moment many spiritual seekers are after. Because our individual experience of, say, self versus other or good versus evil, it's often presented as just a limited view, a product of our minds, our conditioning.
Like we're seeing through a keyhole.
Kind of. There's a line that says, the two exist because of the one, but hold not even to this one. When a mind is not disturbed, the 10,000 things offer no offense.
Wow. Okay, unpack that.
It suggests our habit of categorizing, of splitting the world into opposites. That's actually what hides the underlying unity. When the mind stops its compulsive labeling and judging, the things that seemed like offenses or divisions, they just dissolve, revealing this underlying peace.
That's a radical thought, that our own mental habits create the divisions we see.
It is. The Bhagavad Gita offers another angle. It talks about the difference between the physical body, the individual soul, and the supersoul. Perfect knowledge, it says, understands them as one yet distinct.
One yet distinct. Okay.
So it's not about erasing the differences or saying individuals don't exist. It's about understanding their relationship within this larger, unified whole. Think of a wave in the ocean.
Okay. The wave is distinct, but you can't separate it from the ocean.
Exactly. The individual soul keeps its uniqueness, but it's still an expression and emanation of the divine.
This leads to that idea, we are all one, right? Which pops up in a few places.
Precisely. And it's presented not just as, a nice poetic thought.
Or a feel-good slogan.
Right. It's presented as a foundational truth. And if you really buy into it, it forces a massive shift in how you act, how you interact with others.
How so?
Well, if you truly recognize the self in the other, then actions like sharing everything become natural. Because there's no real other to hoard things from. It directly challenges our deep-seated ideas about individual ownership and self-interest.
It's like our feeling of being separate actually creates this fractured world we experience.
Yeah, Plotinus had a fascinating philosophical take on this. He talked about the divine mind, the intellect, as being always whole and visible. But then he says the soul is divided, even while not being divided, by being whole in all the parts of the body.
Whoa. That sounds like a paradox.
It is. But it mirrors our experience, doesn't it? We are individuals, distinct bodies, distinct minds. Yet somehow, on a deeper level, we're also part of this greater indivisible thing. Our awareness feels local, but maybe its essence is universal.
There's another line that touches on this. Something about denying external reality asserts it, and asserting emptiness denies it.
Yes. The denying of external reality is the assertion of it, and the assertion of emptiness, the absolute, is the denying of it. It basically suggests that clinging too hard to either extreme absolute separation or absolute undifferentiated oneness might be missing the point.
So the truth is somewhere in between.
Or beyond, perhaps beyond those categories. The ultimate reality, the absolute, often seems to transcend our neat little dualistic boxes. So the spiritual journey isn't just about intellectually saying we are one. It's about actually dismantling the mental habits that create the feeling of division and experiencing that unity directly, letting go of fixed viewpoints, allowing for a more fluid understanding, recognizing the one can show up as the many without losing its oneness.
Yeah.
And doing that work, it changes how we see the world. Those offenses lose their power because they're seen as just threads in a bigger, unified pattern.
Okay, that brings us really neatly to the human self then. If we are part of this grand unity, understanding who we are becomes, well, maybe the most crucial step on this whole journey, moving beyond that limited, body-identified self to embrace something deeper, bigger, ultimately unified.
It's a massive inquiry, isn't it?
Oh.
And so many sources dive into this nature of the self, suggesting our usual understanding is often just incomplete, maybe even fundamentally wrong.
How so?
Well, think psychologically. One perspective suggests a child's sense of me develops when it realizes its wishes aren't automatically its mother's command. That creates a boundary, a sense of separate identity.
Which is necessary, right, for development.
Absolutely necessary. But for many traditions, that's just the starting block, not the finish line of understanding who we truly are.
Right, because here's where it gets really interesting. That sense of self feels so solid, but maybe it's actually constructed. Another perspective asserts our deepest nature is awareness. And fully living from that awareness lets us love freely, be whole.
That's a huge shift, identifying not with our thoughts, emotions, body, but with the awareness itself, something more fundamental, unchanging.
Implying that wholeness isn't something we achieve, it's something we uncover by just resting in that awareness.
Exactly. And you see the same distinction in the Tibetan concept of intrinsic awareness, rangrig. It's not just being aware of stuff. It's the mind itself in its natural state, spontaneous, pure, beyond subject-object, beyond busyness and stillness, just pure consciousness.
And that's contrasted
With Atya, fundamental ignorance, which isn't about not knowing facts. It's a deep misperception of reality, mistaking the temporary for the real, the constructed self for our true nature. And that, they say, is the root cause of suffering, of being stuck in cycles of rebirth. It's ignorance of who we really are.
So a lot of our daily struggles or suffering, it comes from this basic misunderstanding, this case of mistaken identity.
It seems so. One source warns about the false mind-made self, created by compulsive thinking, casting this shadow of fear and suffering over everything. It's that nonstop inner voice.
Right. The mental chatter. Yeah.
That incessant mental noise that blocks us from finding that inner stillness, that peace, which is supposedly our natural state. We basically become prisoners of our own minds.
Wow. Another perspective describes the self with a capital S as just watching the inside energies change. All the energies that it watches will just come and go unless you lose your center of consciousness and go with them.
That's such a powerful image. It empowers us, doesn't it? To stop identifying with all those fleeting thoughts and feelings, to realize we're the observer, the unchanging awareness, not the constantly changing stuff we're aware of.
The eye that sees, not the things it sees.
Precisely.
So if that unchanging awareness is our true nature, then what's the point? What's the purpose of this whole human life, this journey?
Well, one compelling answer offered is that the soul's purpose is to experience yourself as all of it, to consciously decide and to be who you really are.
Not as a fixed destination, though.
No, more like a continuous process, evolution, creation, this joyful unfolding of our divine potential. It's about actively choosing and creating our identity in line with that deepest nature.
Okay, so this links directly to meaning, doesn't it? Like Viktor Frankl's idea that life isn't just about seeking pleasure.
But a search for meaning. Absolutely. And that search for meaning is tied up completely with figuring out and then living who you really are. Moving beyond just surviving or feeling good to this deeper purpose of self-creation, self-realization. By understanding that core awareness and choosing to manifest our truest self, we give our lives profound meaning. It stops being just a reaction to stuff happening to us and becomes a deliberate act of creation.
Okay, so if we have this profound understanding of who we are and what we're here for, it makes sense that there'd be all sorts of different ways, different practices to help us get there. And it's fascinating seeing this whole spectrum from really physical, ascetic stuff to purely mental, devotional approaches, all aiming at basically the same spiritual goal. It makes you wonder, is there one right way? Or is it more like, many paths up the same mountain, each one right for a certain person or a certain stage of the journey?
That's a great question. And the sources really seem to point towards the many paths idea, that the right way is deeply personal. It depends on your temperament, where you are.
Like bhakti yoga, devotion.
Exactly. In the Bhagavad Gita, there's huge emphasis on that. One should, with all efforts, try to worship the Supreme Personality of Godhead, culminating in truth consciousness. It's about dissolving the ego through intense love, surrender, a heartfelt connection where intellectual stuff is secondary to just loving absorption.
And it says that kind of knowledge isn't for just anyone, right? Not through speculation or degrees.
Right. It's confidential for the devoted, emphasizing a kind of knowing that goes beyond just the rational mind.
Which is so different from, say, the really rigorous physical and mental disciplines you see elsewhere, like in Yogananda's story.
Ah, yes, Autobiography of a Yogi. His initiation into Kriya Yoga. He describes this intense ecstasy, feeling no need for sleep. It's not just a mental shift, it's portrayed as a direct energetic transformation.
And he mentions advanced yogis transferring disease metaphysically.
Yeah, hinting at this extraordinary control over the body, over subtle energies. And then think of Siddhartha in Hesse's novel, renouncing everything for the life of a samana, extreme self-discipline, mortification.
And the Upanishads back that up, saying asceticism wins truth in mind.
They do, implying that intense self-denial can purify the mind, sharpen perception. These paths aim to master the body and senses, believing that frees the mind for higher awareness.
Then you have the paths focused more directly on the mind itself. Meditation, mindfulness.
Right. The Dhammapada puts it so simply. Refrain from harm, do good, purify your mind. That's the core instruction. Ethical conduct is the base, then mental purification on top.
And meditation helps break the spell of thought. See thoughts just as appearances.
Exactly. Not as facts about reality. It helps you cultivate that deeper awareness beneath the mental chatter and emotional reactions.
And what about continuous prayer, like in the way of a pilgrim?
That's another powerful path. They talk about the mystery of salvation lying in unceasing prayer, believing it literally destroys all evil and creates all good. What's amazing is the idea that even if your prayer feels dry, distracted, if you just keep doing it consistently, it can transform into something pure, illumined, fervent. It really speaks to the power of persistence and faith, even when you're not feeling immediate results. Effort turning into connection.
And some take asceticism even further, right? Mortification of the body?
Yes, some texts speak very directly about mortifying the acts of the body, so that when the soul has been made dead to pleasure, you may bring it back to life through your ascetic labors.
Wow. So denying bodily pleasure liberates the soul for a higher life.
That's the belief. Where true pleasure is found elsewhere, this huge range of practices just highlights how multifaceted the journey is. Different strokes for different folks, really. But they're all aiming at transforming consciousness, connecting more deeply with that ultimate reality.
And Siddhartha's story is interesting there too, right? He tries different paths.
He does, and eventually finds his own way, learning not from a specific guru or discipline in the end, but from listening to the river. It suggests that while external paths are guides, the real integration has to happen inside.
Right. And whether it's through discipline, devotion, meditation, so many of these paths talk about the importance of a spiritual teacher, a guru. It seems the wisdom isn't just in the books. It really comes alive through transmission, through experience.
Exactly. It links back to that idea that knowledge isn't just knowing about something. It's understanding and applying it, living it.
Like the Bhagavad Gita says, Thus is the real master teaching Arjuna.
Yes, and then it extends that you have to learn this science from those who are already fully in consciousness. It implies this lineage of embodied understanding passed down through living examples.
Yogananda's initiation from Babaji sounds like that too. Not just instructions, but an immediate energetic shift.
A direct transmission, an awakening. It's powerful. And think about Rumi and Shams of Tabriz. That relationship was legendary.
Totally transformed Rumi.
Completely. Led him to this far higher level of Sufi mysticism. Rumi saw Shams as like the most complete manifestation of God for him. That's profound guidance, way beyond just teaching. Almost like a mirror reflecting the divine back at him.
But the teacher isn't always a person, is it? Like Siddhartha in the river.
That's such a beautiful point. He learns from humans, yes. But his ultimate lesson comes from listening to nature, to the river, after the ferryman points him towards it. It suggests wisdom is everywhere in silence, in nature, if we cultivate the stillness to perceive it. Really broadens what we think of as a master.
Yeah. And the Gita also says a bona fide master helps you know your spiritual position because you can't just figure it out through mental speculation or, getting a university degree.
Right. It's not anti-intellectual, but it's saying this specific kind of knowledge transcends the intellect. It requires a shift in consciousness, often guided by someone who's been there.
And Sam Harris describes something similar, doesn't he, with Tulku Urgyen?
He does. He says, Urgyen simply handed me the ability to cut through the illusion of the self directly, even just temporarily. He calls it a transmission beyond mere words, like an energetic transfer of insight, not just information. The teacher's presence itself is the catalyst.
So, true teaching, whether it's from a famous guru or a quiet ferryman, is really about guiding the student to their own inner knowing.
Exactly. Not just giving them facts, but helping them unlock it within themselves.
Okay, so these paths, they promise transformation, but they don't sound easy. They seem full of challenges, both internal and external. It's not all bliss and light, is it? Often feels more like walking through fire.
Not at all. In fact, quite the opposite sometimes, which, begs the question, what actually gets in our way? And consistently, the sources say it's about confronting those internal barriers, the ego, self-will, that nonstop mental chatter.
Our own minds again.
Yeah. One text calls identification with your mind the greatest obstacle because it makes thinking compulsive. It drowns out that inner stillness where real awareness lives. The mind just runs its old tapes, creating a false self.
It really does feel like our minds are the main battleground sometimes. The sneaky ways we get caught up in thoughts, desires. It's powerful stuff. There's one text, Theologia Germanica, it's pretty blunt about it.
Yeah.
It says, all self-will is sin, and there is no sin but what springeth therefrom. Basically, true goodness seeks unity, not the I, me, mine, self. It reframes not just as bad actions, but as the ego fundamentally insisting on its own separate agenda.
That's a radical reframe. And another source paints this picture of us hiding in there, struggling to keep it all together, Anytime something challenges that protective shell we build around ourselves, we defend, we rationalize, just to put it back together.
It sounds exhausting.
It is. This constant battle to maintain a false front, an image that's always under threat, it blocks real growth, real vulnerability.
And the Dhammapada links craving directly to suffering, right? Freedom comes when there's no clinging, no net-like craving. That helps you become trackless, unbound. But if your thoughts are disturbed, passionate, always seeking pleasure,
craving just increases all the more, strengthening the chains. It's a clear cause and effect. Internal desire leads to external entanglement or freedom.
and these obstacles can be subtle, operating under the radar, like that idea from the Screwtape Letters.
Ah, yes, the demonic perspective.
Where reluctance to think about God gets amplified tenfold when it's tied to this vague, half-conscious guilt.
Yeah, that aversion to looking honestly at ourselves, often rooted in shame or fear, it just digs the negative patterns in deeper, makes real change, real inner work so much harder, the ego protecting itself.
So going against that grain is key, like Pema Chodron suggests with practices like Tonglen.
Exactly. Tonglen reverses that usual logic, avoid pain, seek pleasure. Instead, you breathe in suffering, breathe out relief. It's designed to liberate you from those ancient habits of selfishness, completely reorienting your relationship with pain itself, seeing it not as something to run from, but maybe as raw material for compassion.
Wow. Okay, so it's not always comfortable. In fact, sometimes it sounds downright painful. Many traditions talk about these periods of intense difficulty, spiritual dryness, feeling totally abandoned. Sometimes you have to walk through the dark to find the light.
Absolutely. And what's fascinating is that these intense periods, often called the dark night, aren't just seen as unfortunate side effects. They're often viewed as essential for transformation.
Essential? How?
St. John of the Cross describes the dark night as an inflowing of God into the soul, which actively purges it from its ignorances and imperfections. He calls it the loving wisdom of God. Painful, yes, but ultimately it purifies and illuminates the soul, preparing it for union with God. It's like a divine, deep clean.
It's hard to wrap your head around something so painful being called loving.
It is. And he explains that the soul feels like it's in total darkness, even while it's being flooded with divine light. His analogy is like a ray of sunlight. If it's perfectly pure and hits nothing, you don't see it.
So the feeling of emptiness is actually a sign of the light's purity, because the soul's eyes aren't refined enough to see it yet.
That's the idea. And this purging, he says, involves afflictive purgations of the spirit, so the soul can be begotten anew in spiritual life. The goal is to strip away all the ego's attachments, all the false comforts, leading to this deep inward peace and tranquility that surpasses understanding. But you have to let go of the old imperfect peace first. It's a total emptying out to make space.
St. Teresa of Avila talks about this too, right? Great interior trials, the pain of feeling far from God.
She does. But she also notes paradoxically that the pain itself increases desire. It intensifies the longing for the divine. And those anguished thoughts that it has lost God, the fears of abandonment, she sees those as actually being expressions of love, an estimate of love for God that prepares the soul for even more love later. The absence is felt so deeply because the love is so strong.
And you see echoes of this even outside a strictly religious context, like in Siddhartha.
Absolutely. He hits this point of deep sadness, feeling his life has been worthless, pointless, total despair, spiritual bankruptcy after trying all these paths.
Right.
But that disillusionment leads directly to his breakthrough moment, remembering Om, remembering Brahman, waking up a new man.
The classic low point before the transformation.
Exactly. It shows these intense difficulties aren't just bumps in the road. They're often the catalyst. They break down the false stuff, refine the soul, and prepare it for a much deeper, more authentic connection.
Okay, so through all these challenges, these transformations, there's this thread that keeps weaving through everything. Love. It seems like it's not just an emotion, but maybe a skill, a practice, a fundamental quality of both the divine and us. Maybe it's the fuel that gets us through the dark night.
That's a beautiful way to put it. And it begs the question, right? How do we cultivate this powerful force? Eric Fromm argued powerfully that love is an art.
An art.
Meaning it requires mastering the theory, requires diligent practice, and requires making it your ultimate concern.
Yeah.
He worried that society teaches us to make success, prestige, money, power our ultimate concerns instead. But real love, he argued, is an active choice, a skill we develop, not just a feeling that washes over us.
That makes so much sense. We often treat love like something passive, but seeing it as an art means active work, continuous effort.
And from Ram also connected love directly to spiritual experience. He said, the act of experiencing the oneness with God is the ultimate way to grasp the world, not just thinking about it. Love becomes the way we actually perceive that interconnectedness.
And the divine love described is often boundless, right? Compassion never ends, love never stops.
Exactly. Unconditional. It's presented as the ideal, the model for us, suggesting these qualities are innate in us too, just waiting to be expressed. And then you get practical advice too. If you seek love, appreciation, and affection, then learn to give those things.
The law of attraction, basically.
Sort of a reciprocal principle. What you put out, you tend to get back, making love an active, generative force in the world.
And Rumi's poetry is all about this, isn't it? Love transcending worldly attachments.
Hugely. He famously put mystical love above reputation, intellect, even rigid religious rules. For him, it was the most direct path to God, the ultimate guide and purifier.
And this love, this compassion, it needs to go inwards too.
That's crucial. Pema Chodron says, in order to feel compassion for other people, we have to feel compassion for ourselves. Opening our hearts to our own pain, our own flaws, that's what softens us, purifies us, makes us genuinely kinder to others. Radical self-acceptance comes first.
That's powerful. And there's that line about love undoing hatred. What hate has wrought have they undone?
Yes. From A Course in Miracles, the blood of hatred fades to let the grass grow green again. Love is presented as this active principle that literally renews, heals, sanctifies. He can undo the damage caused by conflict and bring back harmony.
So it's definitely not just about what happens inside us. The spiritual journey is also deeply about how we show up in the world, how we deal with its challenges. Even in the worst situations, it seems that inner spiritual life offers a way to find meaning, a way to act with principle.
That's such a critical point.
Yeah.
Connecting it all, these texts consistently show that real spiritual strength isn't about escaping the world. It's about transforming our relationship to it and to ourselves within it. And often that means questioning the status quo, the social structures around us.
Like the calls in the Quran to stand up and warn, magnify your Lord, purify, and abandon impurity.
Exactly. Those aren't just internal reminders for personal piety. They're calls to action in society, to fight corruption, uphold higher principles publicly.
And there's that stark choice presented about humanity being at a crossroads, inherently good or inherently evil. And that choice determines our future.
Yeah, suggesting our collective spiritual choices have real, tangible consequences for civilization. And then there's that radical reframing of conflict. All attack is a call for help.
That changes how you see things, doesn't it?
Completely. Looking beyond the aggression to the pain and misunderstanding underneath.
Then you have teachings that really challenge our attachments, even to family, like that saying attributed to Jesus about hating family to be a disciple.
Right. Which isn't about literal hate, obviously, but it's a radical call to reorder priorities. Spiritual commitment above all worldly ties. True discipleship might demand everything.
And sometimes Incredibly, external suffering can serve a purpose. Like the screwtape letters suggesting war, despite its horror, can strip away superficiality.
Yeah, by forcing a confrontation with mortality, with bigger values, it makes contented worldliness seem pointless. Again, not saying war is good, but that extreme adversity can trigger a spiritual awakening that comfort might prevent.
And Viktor Frankl's experiences in the concentration camps, that's the ultimate example, isn't it?
It's staggering. He saw people lose their humanity, yes, but he also saw others use that unimaginable suffering to deepen their spiritual lives, to find meaning against all odds. It proves external conditions don't have the final say over our inner spirit. We always retain that choice.
And Marcus Aurelius, writing centuries ago, gives us that solid framework too. Focus on integrity, modesty, justice, and truth, not the vain, rotten, mean stuff the world chases.
Timeless advice. All these examples show us that resilience, meaningful action, they're possible, even necessary when things are tough. We're not just victims. We can be active agents shaping our inner and outer worlds.
Okay, it's become so clear through this whole deep dive. Our inner world, what we believe, think, perceive it, plays this massive role, not just on the journey, but in how we deal with everything. Which leads us to this really fascinating, kind of empowering conclusion, sheer power of our perception and how we actually actively create our reality.
It's a mind-boggling implication, isn't it? What's remarkable is how many sources suggest this radical self-responsibility. We're not just puppets of fate or circumstance. We have this incredible capacity to shape things through conscious intention, through how we perceive.
Like the word is your power of creation.
Exactly. And that power goes both ways. Use it impeccably truthfully with love, and you create your personal heaven. Misuse it, and you create personal hell. The words we speak aren't just sounds, they're forces that bring things into being.
So it all circles back to our inner landscape. What we believe, think, say. We are like co-creators of our experience, whether we know it or not.
And the implications are huge. One text explores how creation follows thought, which follows perception. It even suggests psychics don't predict a fixed future. They see possibilities existing right now in the present.
Because everything has already happened in infinite ways.
That's the idea. And our perception then kind of pulls one of those possibilities into our experienced reality.
Wow. Okay. So it's this dynamic, responsive thing between our consciousness and reality.
Seems so. Change your perception, you change your thoughts. Change your thoughts, you change your reality. Even before you ask, I will have answered, one text says, suggesting our deepest intentions are already part of the potential that can manifest. The universe is constantly responding, reflecting our inner state back to us, like a feedback loop.
And it's not some external God pulling the strings.
Apparently not in the way we usually think. Another line emphasizes, what is best depends on who you are and who you seek to be. God's best is giving you what you decide is best, because God experiences itself through you.
Okay, that puts a huge amount of creative power right back in our laps.
It does. Divine will isn't about external rules, but aligns with our conscious choices. The divine almost delights in our self-creation. It reminds me of that declaration from the Torah, the Lord our God, the Lord is one, and we're to love him with all our heart, soul, might. It implies this total alignment of our whole being in this active process of co-creation. Our deepest intentions become sacred acts.
So the bottom line is, our inner state, our perceptions, thoughts, words, they aren't just reacting to the world, they're actively shaping it.
That's the profound implication, which puts a massive emphasis on self-awareness, doesn't it? On mindfulness, on being intentional. It reminds us the reality we experience is, to a huge degree, flowing from our own consciousness. We're not just living in a world, we're constantly bringing it into being, moment by moment. That's the ultimate empowerment, really, inviting us to be deliberate architects of our own lives.
So what does this all mean for you, our listener, as you go about your own life, your own journey? This deep dive into belief, into the self, has taken us through some pretty amazing landscapes of thought and experience. We've seen the divine described not as separate, but as this all-encompassing unity. We've heard that our true self is way bigger, way more capable of love than just our everyday ego, and that the path to waking up, well, it's challenging, involving huge transformations inside and out.
Yeah, and we've touched on some really profound, yet kind of simple wisdoms, especially those core takeaways that offer these radical shifts in how we might live. First, we are all one.
Which isn't just nice spiritually, it challenges everything, right? Competition, scarcity, conflict.
Totally. If you really internalize that, it starts to dismantle the mental structures that drive fear of the other, possessiveness, always needing more. It pushes you towards radical compassion, towards sharing, because everyone is just another aspect of yourself.
And the second one, there's enough.
Right. Which directly tackles that scarcity mindset that causes so much anxiety and greed. It suggests the universe is fundamentally abundant, and feeling lack is a misperception, usually driven by fear.
This doesn't mean sit back and do nothing, though.
No, but it means trusting in a basic order, releasing that compulsive striving that leads to burnout. It encourages moving from hoarding to circulating, recognizing real wealth is shared well-being, the flow.
Okay, and the third one, there's nothing we have to do. That one feels challenging.
It is, especially for our modern, always busy minds. It's an invitation to shift from constant anxious doing, striving, proving, achieving to a state of just being, allowing things like solutions, creativity, joy to arise naturally from that inner stillness, that alignment.
Acting from inspiration, not obligation.
Exactly. It frees us from external pressures, from our own self-imposed demands, making whatever we do choose to do much more powerful and authentic.
So this whole deep dive, really, it's an invitation for you, listening, to look beyond the usual assumptions, to recognize the incredible active power of your own consciousness in shaping your life, to reflect on your beliefs, your perceptions, the stories you tell yourself.
Yeah, to see your undeniable role in co-creating your reality every single moment. It's a call to really examine that inner narrative. Observe your thoughts, your desires. Ask yourself, do they serve my highest purpose? Do they reflect the bigger truth of who I really am? Because this journey of belief, it's ultimately about self-discovery, conscious creation, and just unfolding into your grandest self.
So as you go forward from here, maybe consider this. If your highest pleasure truly is to create and recreate yourself in ever grander versions, and if your thoughts really are the seeds of your reality, what magnificent truth will you choose to make manifest in your life, starting right now?